What's the difference between even though and even if? And even so? Even if you know the difference, we think you should listen to this episode of
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig. Hi, I'm Reza.
And I'm Craig, and welcome to the podcast, especially if you're a new listener. We're going to help you vocalize your vocabulary, grow your grammar, and perfect your pronunciation. This week we're speaking about even though and even if, and looking at the difference between those expressions and even so as well. Reza, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Craig. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Are you enjoying the autumn?
I'm loving the weather. I'm enjoying the lovely, sunny, cool weather here in Valencia, and very happy to be back on the microphone for another English podcast. Before we begin with a voice message from Santiago from Mexico, just a quick hello to Isaac Mateos from Brazil. Just want to say thanks for listening. Let's listen now to Santiago, who sent us this voice message.
Hello Reza, hello Craig, it's me again, Santiago from Mexico, and guess what? I'm angry and also sleepy because I have tried to record this voice message at least 25 or maybe 30 times because I can't sound as natural as I would like to be with my speaking. Well, not natural, but to articulate my ideas without thinking first in Spanish. So I don't care anymore. I won't record this voice message any longer. So, como quede. I would like to say the three things about your podcast. First of all, I want to thank you for all your dedication, for your time, for your work, for sharing your knowledge with us, at least for me, because I have learned a lot of vocabulary, grammar, and a lot of things. So thank you for that, guys. You're amazing. And the second, before I forget, I have to admit that I'm getting a British accent because of you, Craig, especially with words that end with ER. For example, computer, not computer as a good American Englishman would say, but computer. But I like it because it's a new view of the language. So now, second, I have to listen to one of your podcasts about, I can't remember which was, but you talked about tidal waves that are created by the gravitational pulls between the Earth and the Moon. And also, these tidal waves are created by the interactions between the sun and the Earth's gravitational pulls. And because of the distance, these tidal waves are negligible, but they exist. And in respect with this, I would like to suggest you could make podcast about space or universe. What if I find a friend who loves watching movies about space? How can I make a conversation with him or her? So that's all for now, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much, Santiago. I can't imagine that you were really worried about the quality of your voice message because it was fantastic. You sound great. Really good.
I'm really pleased he sounds like me. He's got a British accent. Fantastic.
Yeah,
we need more British accents in the world and fewer American accents, in my opinion.
You can maybe start to spread the British accent in North America.
Yeah.
Since you're in Mexico.
Spread the word. Say computer, not computer.
It can start with you and more people can follow you, and it could turn into like a tidal wave of British accents spreading through the north of America.
Speaking of tidal waves, yeah. But no, you sound really fluent, Santiago. You sound really comfortable with the language, and we really enjoyed listening to your message. And you said como quede, which would be however it sounds. So you decided to record it however it sounds, and it sounded really good.
But Santiago, for your own good and for all our listeners, let us just be a little bit fussy. Fussy is tickys-mickeys. We found a couple of things which you could improve. There was nothing that we couldn't understand, but just a couple of things. You didn't pronounce 100% correctly the word message. It's a very typical mistake. You stressed the second syllable, but it should be the first syllable. Message. So a message is what you've just sent us. A massage is what you can get when somebody rubs your body to make you feel better. That's a massage. But you left us a message.
I'd prefer to get a massage than get a message.
From Santiago. Craig, come on. You don't know him that well.
Santiago, you also said in respect with this. It should be in respect to this, which is fine. You can say in respect to this. You could also say with reference to this. You could also say as far as this is concerned. And you can also say regarding this. But all of these expressions are quite formal. You could just say speaking of this, because it's more of an informal message. So you could say speaking of this, I want to say.
Another little tiny thing I noticed, Santiago, was that you said that you listened. I can't remember exactly now, but you listened something. You're missing the word to. Listen to something. So the verb listen is not a phrasal verb. There is no preposition with listen on its own. But if you have an object, if you say what you listen to, then you have to add the word to. So we hope you continue to listen to us.
And right at the end of your message, Santiago, you said, how can I make a conversation with him? It should be, how can I have a conversation with him? So conversation collocates with the verb have, to have a conversation.
You mentioned making a podcast about aliens and UFOs, but actually, Santiago, we have spoken a little bit about them before. Well, you said space. We spoke about aliens and UFOs, which is related to space, in episode 174. So go to inglespodcast.com/174 and you'll find out some interesting English about space.
But what do you think, Reza? Shall we do a podcast about space itself, about the universe and planets? Because that's kind of different. Do you think it's a good idea?
Yes, I think we should. So we will do that sometime in the near future. Santiago, keep listening and watch out for it.
Watch this space. And Santiago spoke about tidal waves, an episode that we recently, well, a while ago we did now. It was back in episode 184, in which we spoke about natural disasters, tidal waves, earthquakes, and as Santiago said, the gravitational pull of the moon to cause tides. And you can listen to that by going to inglespodcast.com/184. Okay, let's look at the difference between even though and even if. And this was a question I got from a student last week. The problem is when you look up in the dictionary, which is look up is buscar, look up in a dictionary, the translation of even though and even if is aunque or a pesar de que. But we don't use them in exactly the same way in English. Do we, Reza?
No, they're different in English. Let's start with even though. This is THOUGH, though. Even though can be used with different verb tenses, and it has a similar meaning to although or though, the short version of although. But it's more emphatic. That's the only thing, really. It puts more emphasis on the two clauses it connects. In other words, The contrast is emphasized more, but it means basically the same as though or although. Can you think of a few examples, Craig?
Well, yeah, I'm thinking of buying a new phone, but I decided not to buy a new phone yet. Even though I had the money, I didn't buy the phone. Even though I had the money, I didn't buy the phone. Notice the pronunciation of though. It's a strange spelling, Though, but the pronunciation of the vowel sound is O, like go or slow or blow or throw. Though, even though I had the money, I didn't buy the phone. Can you think of another example?
What about this? She left me even though she said she still loved me.
Oh, what a shame.
That's sad. So even though, which is a similar meaning to although or just though, emphasizes the contrast that, yeah, she loved me, but she left me. They don't seem to go together. That's why we use even though to emphasize that those two ideas seem to contrast. Have you noticed that we haven't said even plus although? That is not right. So although and though mean the same. One is longer and one is shorter, but it's a contraction. But you cannot put although with even. It's always even though.
Now, even if also means aunque, but it's more the meaning of in the unlikely case that something happens. So what you will do in the future, or what you will do at a future time, despite something which might go against your plan. Let me give you an example. I'll carry on working in the future, even if I win the lottery. I'll carry on working, even if I win the lottery.
Craig, will you teach kids English in the future, small children?
No, very, very unlikely. Even if they offer to pay me more money, I won't teach kids. So in those examples, we're speaking about the future in an unlikely case, poco probable, in the future. So even if they offer to pay me more money, I probably won't teach kids. What about you? Would you teach kids?
Yeah, or even if they paid me the same. I do teach kids. I've been teaching kids for years, kind of older teenagers. I quite like that from time to time.
Not small kids.
No, it's just too stressful. I really respect people who do that all day. I have a lot of admiration for them.
Me too. In fact, in our school where we teach, they've started teaching 2-year-old babies together with their parents. Their parents bring their babies. They're 2 years old. And one of the teachers at the school is teaching a 2-year-old English. I would not do that. Even if you paid me $100 an hour, I don't think I would do that.
Me neither. I think it's probably a good idea to teach 2-year-olds to go to the toilet first before any language, to be honest. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, maybe a little bit young, but they're very, very popular classes.
No, I'm only joking. It actually is a very good idea to teach very young kids a language.
But 2 years old?
I don't know about formally teaching them, but I think it's ideal if a baby is exposed at home to 2 different languages. Let's say they have an English-speaking parent and a Spanish-speaking parent. One could speak English, one could speak Spanish. That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I personally would want to send my baby to a class, but I've got no objection to them being informally taught.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that.
There is actually, listeners, another expression, which is even so. And it seems like we're going to contradict ourselves now, because we said even if is one thing and even though is another thing in English. But in fact, the expression even so can be used for either of them. It can mean even though or even if, depending on the situation.
So can it be also translated as aunque?
Yes, it can be. So I'll give you an example. That's the best thing to do. I loved her very much. Even so, I decided to say goodbye forever. Even so, there started a second sentence, a new sentence. That's the big punctuation point to bear in mind. Even so starts a second sentence. When you use even if or even though, it's just one sentence. But when you use even so, you have to have two sentences.
And a comma after so.
Yes. So I'll read the sentence again with the punctuation, right? I loved her very much. Full stop. Or period. Punto, as the Spanish say. Even so, comma, I decided to say goodbye forever. Full stop. So I have two sentences there. So what that means is, even though I loved her very much, I decided to say goodbye forever. But that sentence would be just all together in one sentence. Even though I loved her very much, comma, I decided to say goodbye forever is one sentence. But even so starts a second sentence. I loved her very much, full stop, second sentence. Even so, comma, I decided to say goodbye forever. Can you think of another example, Craig?
Yes, I can. How about this one? They might threaten to kill me. Even so, I won't surrender. Two sentences. They might threaten to kill me. Even so, I won't surrender. And in one sentence, even if they threaten to kill me, I won't surrender. So even if they threaten to kill me, comma, I won't surrender. One sentence.
So there you had an example of even so in the first example meant even though. And even so in Craig's example means even if.
I think that's clear. Would you do something against your moral principles, Reza? To help someone, if you knew you could help someone, would you go against your moral principles even if you knew it was wrong?
Ooh, that's a very good question.
Even if
That's a very, very good question.
you knew it was
Craig.
wrong. Say, for example, someone you loved was accused of something and they were in court. Would you lie to defend them?
It depends on what the final outcome is going to be. I would consider it.
Mm-hmm.
I would consider it.
Even if it were against the law?
Yes. I think you'd be hard pushed. That means it's almost impossible to find an adult anywhere in the world who has never broken the law. We've all broken the law. Have you ever crossed a busy street without using the traffic light? You broke the law. You're not supposed to do it. I've done it. The police aren't going to come and arrest me right now for that, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Have you ever parked somewhere illegally, even for 5 minutes? You broke the law. So we've all broken the law. It's pretty hard to find anybody who's never broken the law. So the idea of breaking the law doesn't really bother me that much. But I wouldn't like to go to prison for telling a lie in court. But it depends on the final outcome. If I thought that this person was going to go to prison unfairly, but if I said something in court that was not true and would prevent them from going to prison, I might do it. Yeah, I might. So even though it's illegal, I would consider it. What about you?
No, me too. I agree with you. I think sometimes your moral compass is brújula, your moral compass or your moral values, I think sometimes are in some cases above the law.
But Craig, on a personal level, is it always wise to be honest personally? I'm not talking about the law now. Even though you might offend someone?
What does wise mean?
Wise means sabio, so a good idea. Is it wise to be honest, even though you might cause offense to someone?
I often bend the truth, which means I'm not always completely honest. Sometimes I tell a white lie, which is a very, very small lie, to make people feel better sometimes, to avoid offense and avoid confrontation. So yeah, I probably would be dishonest if it means that I would be avoiding confrontation or make somebody feel better. I have to admit that. What about you?
Oh yeah, of course I would. Yeah, of course I would. Well, I say of course because I think all of us like to avoid problems, particularly with people who are important to us. I mean, how many times have you been in this situation, listeners? Your girlfriend has bought some new clothes and says, "Hey, do I look nice in this?" And she thinks she does, but you don't think it really suits her? Are you going to tell her that? Are you really going to say the truth? You're going to say, no, you look terrible now. Are you going to say, yeah, that looks fine. That looks good.
Especially if you're going out and you're 10 minutes late and you haven't left the flat and you're in a rush. She's like, oh, you look fantastic, darling. Let's go.
And she particularly likes it. Best to tell a little white lie, una mentirita.
Yeah.
Craig, do you think if a cold-blooded murderer...
we had cold-blooded in the Shakespeare episode.
Shakespeare invented the word cold-blooded, yeah? If you were listening to the last episode, you'll know that. Imagine a cold-blooded murderer, someone who planned the murder in advance. So it wasn't accidental or a crime of passion, it was calculated. Even if a cold-blooded murderer is very sorry for their actions, should they be pardoned? If so, in what circumstances?
Pardoned means forgiven, not punished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A cold-blooded murderer, someone who planned it and then did it.
Yeah, no, I would... Well, unless perhaps they are mentally unstable, which means they're not in control of their actions mentally speaking. If that can be proved, then perhaps. But generally speaking, if you kill somebody in cold blood, then no, you should not be pardoned. You should be punished.
Even if this person says, I want to dedicate the rest of my life to helping the victims of crime, for example.
No, they can say what they want, but they should be punished because cold-blooded murders are calculated and they're not done out of passion. They're not emotionally driven. They're calculated, they're thought about, they're rationalized, and then you take someone's life. So you have to be, that has a consequence. Unless you have a mental problem, unless you're sick. What do you think?
I think the same as you. I personally wouldn't pardon them, no. I might reduce their sentence, but not pardon them. Not say, okay, you're free to leave. No.
So we agree. Let me ask you this, where mothers-in-law are concerned.
Ooh.
So the mother of your wife or husband, why do mothers-in-law often find fault in their son's wife? To find fault means to see the negative things, to point out or to emphasize the bad things in their son's wife, even if their daughters-in-law are flawless in every way. Flawless means perfect. So even if their daughters-in-law are perfect, why do they still find fault in their wives, their son's wife?
Craig, are you asking this question as the devil's advocate, or do you have some experience in this field?
Well, I do have some personal experience. My mother never, ever liked any of my girlfriends. She never got on with them, which means, llevarse bien. She never had a good relationship with any of them. Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is? Is it true in your case?
Yes, exactly the same with my mom. Until I've had girlfriends that I finished with, and then when it was definitely all over, 10 minutes later, they said, oh, such and such a girl, whatever her name is, such and such means the name's not important. Such and such a girl was lovely. Why did you end it with her?
But that was after you broke up.
After I broke up. But then I tell her, but the whole time you said she was horrible and she did everything wrong. She admitted, no, she's not a bad girl. When it's all over. Has that happened to you as well?
Definitely. Definitely.
Why do they do it? Why do mothers-in-law find fault in everything that your girlfriend or your wife does?
Well, I think it's because nobody is ever good enough for their son. However perfect or flawless the girl or woman is, she can never possibly be at the high level of their son. And I think it's often true also in reverse with the daughter of the father.
Aha.
So the son-in-law is never good enough for a father's daughter. Do you think that's also true?
Son-in-law, father-in-law relationships very strained. Like, this man could never treat my daughter good enough.
Because this man has taken my baby girl, for example. Do you think that's true?
Yeah. Because generally speaking, fathers seem to be especially protective of their daughters, of their sons as well, but they're a bit worried that someone's going to take advantage of their daughters.
Exactly.
And they're on the lookout for anybody who might be in that category, yeah?
Yeah, so I think it's true on both sides.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem to cut so much the other way.
What does that mean, cut so much?
To cut so much the other way means it doesn't apply equally in all situations. So even though a mother-in-law finds her son-in-law not that great, he doesn't get criticized. What I'm saying is, maybe the words are confusing you. The man who marries a mother's daughter doesn't tend to get criticized so much by that woman, the mother.
That's true.
Yeah, it's more, as we said earlier, that mothers are very, very protective of their sons. So any woman who gets involved with that son better watch out. But they're not so protective of their daughters, right?
What about a woman who marries a father's son? So a daughter-in-law from the father's side.
Okay, so the father-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship.
Yeah.
Again, I think there don't tend to be so many problems, do there?
No.
Father-in-laws and daughters-in-law tend to get on all right.
Even though it should be the same, it isn't.
Should be, but even so, these are the problems in life that we just have to deal with.
That's right. And now we think you should practice your English practicing these expressions, even so, even though, and even if. We'd love to hear from you, especially if you have an idea for a future podcast. Let us know what you think. You can leave your voice messages on SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Or send us an email with a comment or question to me, Craig, at inglespodcast.com.
Or me, that's belfastreza@gmail.com.
And we'd like to thank our wonderful patrons who continue to support the podcast. You can see all of their names on our website at inglespodcast.com/234. Special thanks to Bruno, our gold sponsor, who offers walking tours of Copenhagen through his company, CopenhagenWalkingTour.com. Go there if you're thinking of going to visit that beautiful city. Also, if you're going to Rio de Janeiro, Bruno offers walking tours of the favela area. They are led by local guides. It's very safe, and it also helps to inject money into the favela community. Go to Bruno's websites to find out more information. The Favela Walking Tour is at favelawalkingtour.com.br.
If you'd like to join our Patreon program, you can do that for just $1 a month. And that way you'll get instant access to recent transcriptions of the audio that have been written down lovingly by Angelica Bello from Madrid. If you're interested, go to patreon.com/Inglespodcast.
And we'd like to welcome our new Patreon supporters who have joined us this month. They are Jorge Torres, Joshua Molina Mendez, Miguel Salazar, Edith Clavijo Moreno, and Jose Manuel Palaith Invernon. Thank you very much for supporting us. What's next week, Reza?
On next week's episode, we got homophones.
We'll tell you all about those next week. Until then, thank you for listening. It's goodbye from Reza.
And bye-bye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later. Before that, we've got a message from Isaac Mateos from Brazil. Let's hear... No, we don't. What about a woman who marries a father's son?